So, welcome everyone to the L7C podcast, Pop Culture Edition. Today, we are going to be talking some pop culture with the pop culture expert, Miss Chelsea Hepburn. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am doing well. Just want to tell you before we've started, you've been on a pretty good run
Yeah.
this entire year. I mean, you, with a little wine in you, last December said you're going to be number one by the end of this year, and your episodes have been doing well all year, so that is a real possibility.
Heck yeah. Crushing it.
So we just got to, keep the momentum. You don't want to die before December.
I mean, I hope not.
That would be terrible.
Seasonal depression wise,
Oh,
who's to say?
geez.
But
So,
podcast wise,
podcast-wise, you don't want to crash down. Your fans are listening. So what are we talking about today?
we're talking about hating and being a hater.
What made you want to talk about this?
That stupid TikTok sound, where it's like, I'm not gonna sing it, but I want to sing it. But you know what I'm talking about, right?
Mhm.
Byron, if you're editing this, if you could add that in, that would be great. But also, I love to hate. It's one of my favorite activities, and I'm also very positive. So I don't know. It brought in a lot of feelings.
And then you were also talking about cringy stuff. So,
Yeah.
what does cringe mean to you?
It means to me, it's something where you get embarrassed by someone's behavior or by your own behavior. So there's secondhand embarrassment where if you watch a TV show, and you have to fast forward because something that is happening is giving you discomfort. But cringe is where it's you see someone on the street and they're just acting a certain way. You get them, it's just embarrassing for them, not watching them, but for them, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. So, do you think now people are becoming more cringy?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. I think there's the oversaturation of influencers and the accessibility of people's day-to-day lives. No one's a mystery anymore. Everyone knows what's going on, no matter what second or where they live. It's every single detail.
Yeah, I agree with the social media aspect because everyone wants to be viral, and I personally think some things are cringe, just like the kiss or slap, people just coming up to strangers in the microphone. It's
Mhm.
oh, do you want to kiss or you want to slap my butt? Or just random people just walking up to people and kissing people because
It's
it's a
so
challenge.
weird. But also, it's not just adults who are cringy, it's
Mhm.
teenagers. At work, I didn't experience this, thank God. But one of my coworkers had a teenager come up to her and was acting like an AI robot and was just being very, I haven't seen the movie Megan, but being very robot-y with their body movements and what they were saying. And my poor coworker, she's terrified and uncomfortable. And it's how do you respond to a teenager doing that to you? And it's so weird.
Or with the fact that teenagers all again trying to get viral so they don't have to get a certain job when they get older, doing whole skits in movie theaters
Mhm.
and a whole bunch of planned stuff. And then when you see stuff on TikTok and all that, I was like, did this really happen or is this planned? Is this super cringy? Why are we doing all this stuff in public? I was at a movie theater on the side. There's 8 teenagers, tripods and all, choreographing a TikTok dance.
Shut up.
Yep. Right down the movie theater I typically go to, right on the side.
Tripods?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I mean that's what it is now. It's you want to record every thing and it's is it really necessary?
Mm-mm.
Like
No.
really?
That's embarrassing. Everything is embarrassing.
Mhm.
Existing is embarrassing. Why do you need to document it?
Do you think it's people are cringe depending on the environment they're around, the people they're with? Are there universal things to you that are it's cringe no matter what?
Mm. Mhm. I think a combination of all of that. I think it's cringe if you're making someone purposely uncomfortable
Mhm.
for a video or for a skit or for your own amusement. one, that's just mean to do to someone, but two, it's embarrassing and makes me uncomfortable. But I also think it's the environment because there are definitely certain things where it's like, this is meant to be filmed. This is meant to be like, it's set up this way. Like if you go to a museum and it's all decked out, like, whatchamacallit over here, Other World, where it's meant to be filmed, then yeah, film away. But if you're at a local art museum, is it meant to be filmed? Maybe, maybe not. So I think there's a time and a place.
I agree. It's just so what? It's just everyone wants to be seen, like
Mhm.
no matter
Yeah.
cringe or not. I think one thing that comes to mind also too is like not from a normal people standpoint, but like when companies try and do things to think they're like hip or in the know or
Yeah.
doing a good deed, and it's cringy. For example, that the Jenner Pepsi commercial where the Pepsi was supposed to end inequality and racism. That is the definition of cringe.
Yeah, that was not a good move by any means. But then you flip it and it's Kendall cutting a cucumber, and that was bad in the original video.
Hmm.
But then she used it later on in marketing campaigns, and now it's an iconic moment. Like, there's a difference between being tone deaf and taking your own misfortune and then spinning it a different way.
Is there one act that you see in your regular life consistently where you're like, this is really cringe? I don't know why people are doing this.
um, when people take pictures of their food or film themselves at a restaurant getting a plate of food, I have a few friends who love to take pictures of what they're eating or like take pictures of like the boomerangs of clinking glasses.
Hmm.
And I've definitely done the like wine glass like boomerang. But there's one video that was circulating around where this woman like made a waiter like serve her food multiple times so that way she could get the perfect take of her receiving whatever it was and her being cute and like dancing and happy about receiving the food. And it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think anytime you're just pulling out your phone just to record absolutely
Yeah.
everything,
Yeah.
especially if it's for a skit or for your channel, whatever is cringe. I think one that's been mine is like extreme displays of public affection in public.
Ew, yeah.
Like I can understand if you're holding hands and you do a little like peck with like your significant other, walking your pets or kids or whatever, but like if you're just in a public park and you're doing the full blown make out, tongue, all of that, I feel like that's a little
Or the
much.
people who wait in lines for roller coasters specifically, and they're all up on each other, like the
Mhm.
behind the back hug and this, that, and the other thing. One, it's too hot. Two, nobody likes each other that much to be all over each other. And three, get a room. Like, grow up. You probably smell, so stop. Like, you little nasty. I don't know. If I ever had a partner who did that to me, I would throw punch them.
It's strange. It's strange. But then going to your hating,
Yeah.
what is hating and what does being a hater mean?
I feel like we've been on a kick of very positive things, which is great. Like body positivity, love it. Mental health, yes, like support it, absolutely. But I think we've entered into almost like a world where it's not okay to be a quote unquote hater where you get called out for doing stupid stuff. Like, I don't know. Everyone is so focused on being positive and being like empowering of people, like whatever the case may be, that we've lost sight that sometimes things need to be hated and there's a reason.
Yeah. I think with that, I feel like we're saturating the definition of
Mhm.
being a hater because I feel like we are mixing having our own personal opinions, constructive criticism, or whatever. And if you have an opinion that I don't agree with, then I can just call you a hater.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's become the new main thing. Is like, oh, that's their point. Like I
Mhm.
feel like that's the new thing. Even with the body positivity thing, like if you're comfortable in your body, sure, that is great. But it's like, if you're 500 pounds or not, maybe you should cut back a little because you're not going to live much longer.
Right.
And then you get called a hater, and they're like, oh, you're hating because you're against body positivity. It's like, no, I'm trying to make sure you live to another day.
Right. And I
So,
feel like there's definitely a line that people, one, should be aware of, but two, not toe, but be cognizant of pointing out that if you're like Dr. Now, for example, he calls people out on their weight and their eating habits because he cares about their future. But if you're bullying someone because they're obese and you are making fun of their appearances and this, that, and the other, and like looking to make yourself feel better and get a rise out of them, then that's not okay.
yeah.
But if you're coming from a place of like, hey, maybe this isn't healthy, then I think it's different.
So then on using that definition, what's a good time to like hate on something, if any?
Honestly, think that is a good example of like if you're not doing it out of meanness, like being a hater, yeah, you can have a certain tone of negativity, but there's a difference between being a bully and being a quote unquote hater. Like how you talked about with if you don't disagree, then you're kind of a hater from that definition standpoint. So like Dr. Now would be a hater, and then whoever's bullying that person would just be a straight up bully.
I think with hating, it's just like it all depends on the person you're receiving it. Because
Mhm.
again, like for example, for a thing that's been going on now, especially when COVID boomed and it's going to be around for the foreseeable future,
Yeah.
people doing like OnlyFans and stuff like that. Like if you ask your confidants, your closest friends, it's like, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you guys
Mhm.
think? And if someone gives you a logical thing, it's like, I mean, there's a lot of people competing in it. I mean,
Mhm.
you're not, because I do feel like a lot of people lie. Not everyone is in the top 1% in OnlyFans.
No.
You're not going to be guaranteed that. And you do know if you go down this path, all your other career options that you've been doing are probably over.
Yeah.
And then someone could be like, oh, you're just hating, or, you don't. And it's just like, you're not hating, you're just giving a logical thing. And if they want to do it, fine. But
Mhm.
you gave them a logical
Yeah.
answer. So,
I also think because you brought up logic, not that many people are using it or are aware that it exists. Like everyone is so quick to jump on a bandwagon without
mhm.
thinking about what it means. And to use OnlyFans, like sex work is absolutely real work. Like people should be compensated for what they do, but you have to weigh those pros and cons before you enter anything. It's the same thing if you were to get a job at McDonald's. There's pros and cons no matter what you do, no matter what path you take. It's all about what works for you. Like if you work at McDonald's, probably free milkshakes, but you're also going to be smelling like french fries every day of your life. Does that work for you? Same thing with OnlyFans. Like,
Yeah, and also just, we talked about the cameras earlier. People don't want to get canceled or caught on anything like
mhm.
so and so said this about me, they're a hater. Then you have all these people in your mentions or whatever saying
Right.
you're such a hater, this, that. Nobody wants to deal with that. But I also feel like with that being said, and more of the cancel culture ish thing, is like people are
Yeah.
now afraid to speak their real opinions about
Mhm.
stuff.
Cancel culture, while it's a different topic, I feel like it plays into
Hmm.
being a hater. Cancel culture is inherently toxic.
Yes.
Um, you're again not using logic. It's based on a who said what said or allegations, and it's some people should be ultimately canceled once truth and facts come out, but to automatically cancel someone is crazy because you don't know the full extent, if there is an extent to whatever allegations there may be.
Yeah, most people don't even do their own research. I mean, you'll see
Yeah.
a media clip and you're like, oh yeah, this person's canceled. I don't like them. And you don't
Mhm.
even do like the full context. Most people do not
No.
do that. So it's just where with the hating and the cringe stuff, it's like you don't want to get canceled. Even a normal person, like, because the internet just, when they're like, oh, who is this person? And then people find out, like, they'll find you, like, oh, this person works at the post office.
Oh, for
And
sure.
then this person's Instagram or TikTok or this, and they just start
Yeah.
blasting you. Nobody wants to deal with that on, because technically, in some senses, cancel culture can be the worst form of online bullying.
Oh, absolutely. And it's crazy because it's not just deep issues that people get canceled for. For work, I have to be part of a few different Facebook pages.
Mhm.
And one person literally posted in there, like, hey, I was in the school zone driving. I was going the speed limit, and somebody was tailgating me and honking, and then they filmed me driving. I just want to preface this in case they post videos. Like, I was following the speed limit. This is what actually happened. I don't know if they're going to post anything, but I want to be prepared just in case. And that's just like your average Joe Schmo posting about that, about driving.
Mhm.
Like, if people are afraid to drive because of a cell phone, that's insane to me.
It's, it's just the world that currently is now.
Mhm.
I think people decide who they want to give a second chance to,
Oh,
or
absolutely.
people now decide who they want to give a second chance to based off of the influencer they follow
Mhm.
deciding, and then they
Yeah.
just follow the influencer.
And it also, like, it depends on your algorithm too. Like,
Mhm.
if one video clip pops up and you see one side first, oftentimes people are gonna take that side first because it's gonna be like, "Oh, this is the first thing that I saw. It's based on my algorithm. This makes sense." And then the next few videos of the same event could be from different perspectives, but because you already had that one, your own beliefs have infiltrated that, and now you're stuck on that stance.
Well, I mean, since you talked about video, this story's dying down a bit, but we haven't talked about it on here, but it's still a hot topic. Let's talk about one of the hottest videos out right now. The high school football player and the mom. Came out, mom hopped in her son's arms,
Yeah.
and then the whole, I don't know how, see, again, I don't know how people get things viral, but started going through like, is this an acceptable hug for a mom
Right.
and son? And at first I'm like, are we sure? Like, is that his girl? And then the TikTok you showed me, the girl was like, that's his mom, that's his mom. And I
Right.
started seeing it on Twitter and all that stuff. And then
Mhm.
I just read the comments to see the debate
Yeah.
between people. But would you, and then I found the mom's Instagram. She explained
Mhm.
stuff. Then I went to the son's Instagram. He explained like their dad just died. He was like not in their life. He was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
So it was just her and him, and like
Yeah.
she was rejoicing and all that. But all that combined now, it's like, what were your initial thoughts?
Mhm.
Like, did that fill your definition of cringy? And then after you heard the mom and son story, what were your thoughts after?
So, I think even knowing the story, and
Mhm.
this is just, like, based on my own personal beliefs, I think it's cringy. 1, I don't like hugs. Um, 2, if I were ever like that in public, I would be embarrassed for myself. But again, that's just me.
Mhm.
The original video, not knowing context or anything, it was uncomfortable.
Mhm.
And the only video truly that was out there at the time was the person saying, like, that's his mom. That's his
Mhm.
mom. So, like, normally, if you look on TikTok, if you look at a video, you can see where it's either been, like, linked or the search of, like, the original, and then you can go back. But that wasn't the case with that video. So, one, already kind of a red flag, if you will, because there's no way that the original didn't exist somewhere in the world. But 2, there's no proof either way. It was just that quick little snippet.
Mhm.
Um, and then you were the one who did, like, the deep investigating. I just sent it to you because I find things, and sometimes I like to see what your reaction will be. And knowing the 2 other sides, I don't think we necessarily should be haters based on it, but do I think it's cringy? Yeah.
I think the thing that gets people the most about the video is the mom's legs around the son. I
Yeah.
think that's the main thing. Like if you would have like
It wa
jumped in your son's arm and did like little like world or whatnot, I think people
Mhm.
would have been
Mhm.
would have been a viral video. It's the wrap around of the legs part
Right.
where I think
Right.
really
But I
gets
also
people.
and it's also the fact that in the video and on the Instagram, she appears to be either younger as a mom
Mhm,
or, like, fundamentally, she's beautiful.
mhm,
Like, she takes good care of herself,
mhm.
and that's not necessarily the image of moms that America is painted with. When you think of a mom, you're supposed to think of someone who doesn't take care of their appearance because
Doesn't
they're
look like
like,
doesn't look
fully
like that
focused
when
on
their
their
kids in
kids.
high school.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and that's not realistic or fair to put that expectation on women. So,
Do you think that story would have been a big story if it was a famous person? I think they would have blew it off.
oh, absolutely.
Like if Kim Kardashian would have jumped in like Saint's arms like that, I don't
She would have
think
been
this.
blown off
Yeah.
immediately. It would have been, "Oh, it's just Kim. It's just her."
And if she said the same explanation, you already know the stuff I've gone through with like
Right.
Saint's dad and all of
Mhm.
that, and like he just
Yeah.
scored a goal or his first goal ever and all that emotion. Like I feel like it was someone famous with like yeah,
Yeah.
whatever, but it was just like
Oh, for
normal
sure.
schmo.
Ah, and that's like celebrity and normal is so disconnected.
Mhm.
And obviously, there's always going to be a disconnect. Like, there's a reason why people are famous and everyone's just average. But there's different standards that the normal person is held to compared to the famous. Like, if I had a DUI, I would not get hired in any position that I wanted.
Mhm.
But if I were a singer or an actress and I had a DUI, people overlook that if I have talent.
Same thing with any like I mean, if you had a domestic violence charge or anything like
Yeah.
that, normal jobs. I mean, there are
Mhm.
jobs like that you could get, but like let's say like
Oh,
there's
yeah.
a lot of jobs you wouldn't be able to get, but
Or yeah.
I mean, how many singers, rappers, any all that artists
Mhm.
have DV charges against a spouse
Oh,
or drug charges and all
yeah.
that, and they can continue doing their lives. So could athletes to a certain extent, but there's some where it's like
Yeah.
with athletes now that there's video usually, if there's a video, then you might be done. But artists and all that,
It's part of their craft.
look at that. I mean, that whole Megan Tory thing, I didn't take a side until it was all like until all the facts came out. I
Right.
mean, he got convicted and there's still millions of people saying free Tory, even though he
Mhm.
shot at Megan,
Right.
and they still think she's lying. It's like,
Yeah.
but if he does get out, and whenever he does, he can still just continue making music as long as one of his people already in the music industry give him
Mhm.
a chance. And we're gonna listen. People are gonna listen to it.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just that. Like, if another article comes out with him and, Jada Pinkett, if
Oh God.
if
Well,
something if another scandal comes out from, like, that standpoint, that would overshadow it, and then everything would be lost,
mhm.
which is crazy, but it also just kinda shows how quick people are to make up their minds, and once you Google something, if a bigger story pops up, it'll get covered, which is, like, brings me to my favorite topic, Taylor Swift. Naturally, I can find a way to segue her in. But so with 1989, the Vault tracks were released, and one of the songs is called Slut. So now, whenever you Google Taylor Swift Slut,
Mm.
that track is going to pop up. It's going
And
to
that's a new
cover.
track,
It's
right?
a new. It's no one's heard it
So
yet.
people are already assuming what it's gonna be.
I mean, it's either going to make me cry and want to throw up, or it's going to make me want to cry and shake my ass. So either way, I win. Um, But whenever you Google that, it's not gonna be stories of Taylor Swift and her exes or whatever media and social media painted her out to be in the early 2000s. It's going to be her and that new song. It's a complete rebrand. So, it's weird. The world's weird.
I mean, it takes a lot to rebrand yourself. I mean,
Mhm.
there's stuff that like you're a full Taylor Swift. There's stuff you're not gonna forget. It's a part of her
Yeah.
entire story. Just like the stuff with their Kardashians and Kim, she's completely rebranded, but still the stuff with Ray is part of the entire story. Like
Mhm.
obviously the stuff with Brittany and Kevin,
Oy.
it's still a part of the
Yeah.
entire story. It's just like what are you known as in this point
Mhm.
in time? But it's funny though that when you mess up, all of that stuff that you thought rebranded comes back out.
Oh, for sure.
Let's say, like with the stuff with just real quickly with like Taylor, if she does start dating the Chiefs tight end Travis Kelsey, like if she does date him, and then they break up or whatnot, and it's not on the great of terms, you're gonna have some fans coming back like, can't wait to hear the Travis Kelsey diss song on.
Right.
I mean, that's it's
Mm-hmm.
just the way it is.
Right.
So, but I just want to ask anything else you want to talk about. You did great.
Thanks. That's
Just I had
amazing.
to just had to throw in that video because it matched the
The
topic.
It really did. Trying to think. Ooh, I hate slow walkers.
Is that a cringe thing or a hating thing?
I hate. I seethe. It makes me so mad. If I get caught behind you and you're a slow walker,
What if
just
they're
know
older?
I don't care.
In a wheelchair, cane, don't care?
Then I care.
Okay.
I do care. I have a line. I do have empathy. But if you're just a slow walker, get out of my way. If
Okay.
you have a stroller and you're taking up the whole sidewalk, be aware of your surroundings, please.
All right. Fair enough.
What else do I hate? Mouth breathers.
Okay.
I don't like a mouth breather unless you're sick or it's allergy season.
Anything else?
Probably. The list goes on. I like to hate. Hater Hebert is what they call me. And by they, I mean me.
Has anyone actually called you a hater? Like it meant it seriously? Did it ever affect you?
I mean, people have called me mean
Okay.
or bitchy, if you will. Sometimes it like makes me sad, and then I remind myself that it's okay to be quote unquote mean because oftentimes what other people think is mean is just me standing up for myself.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Like I'm not going out of my way to bully someone and literally standing up for myself.
Anything else?
Mm, no. What do you hate?
Hate?
Yeah,
In the terms of like this podcast hating and cringe stuff or like in the world?
both.
Hate cringe stuff I already said. Extreme public affection. I'm not a fan of. Not a fan of that at all. Um that's really one of the biggest.
Mhm.
Rude to food and retail staff.
Yes.
Especially since a long time ago, way before this podcast was a thing. I worked in like a retail store and like
Mhm.
like you're getting paid literally pennies on the dollar, and then people are being rude to you too. It just doesn't make
Yeah.
a mixed stuff. So even when waiters, waitresses mess up your order, which it does happen and it is frustrating, but you gotta realize it's like, well,
Yeah.
they probably have had 1,500 orders plus and like all of that and like being rude to them, especially being overly overt about it and just like screaming and
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of,
Like, that's just embarrassing and you need to grow up.
you know.
If you're really gonna scream at someone for messing up a simple thing, look at yourself.
Then my biggest thing probably besides those two are people who make fun and get on people for stuff that they like that isn't causing anyone any harm.
Ooh,
So
yeah.
like I mean, you really like Taylor Swift. I'm not like bullying you because you like Taylor Swift because I'm like, oh, Taylor Swift is dumb, this, that, or like
Right.
people who get on like when I see like fans post stuff about Swift and all that stuff, obviously it could be a lot, and you're just like, all right, but it's like they're enjoying it,
Yeah. Live
they're
their
not
best
causing
life.
anyone any harm, or like, oh, if you're like really in sport, like you're not hurting anyone if you're in like
Mhm.
anime or anything positive that brings joy to your life and you're not hurting anyone, but then people try to rag on you for liking that stuff. I'm not a fan.
Oh, for sure.
And then to side note with that, I'm not a fan of people gender coding what people are
Yes.
allowed to like and not allowed to like. Those are probably, in terms of this podcast, probably the four
Mhm.
big stuff. World issue stuff, that's a whole other episode. So,
Ooh, I also hate when people comment on things that you can't necessarily control. Like if you have a pimple
mm,
or if you find something genuinely funny and you're laughing about it and someone tells you that you're being too loud.
mm,
Like if it came out, obviously they thought it was funny or they couldn't control it in that moment. Stop.
Hmm.
Like, they're probably already self-conscious about it. You don't need to bring it up to them.
Yeah. So those are things.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Mm, no, but I'll think of stuff.
With that being said, thank you everyone for listening to the L7C podcast. Thank you, Chelsea, for dropping the gems on cringy and hating and talking about the most viral mother-son football game video of all time and going into some other things. Chelsea, do you already know what you're going to talk about next month or the next time you're on?
Oh, God. Next month is Halloween.
I mean, we're getting into those final
Ooh,
stretch of the year for Chelsea's run.
I know, it's crazy. We could talk about social status in Halloween with like costumes and
That's a good, that's a very good one because Halloween, is, I mean, in blatant terms, it's the one day where a majority of the world is like, all right, it's okay to be a slut, but if you wear a
yeah,
costume any other day, that's a
yeah.
good one.
Let's talk about that.
Well, you heard it from the pop culture expert. That's what we're going to talk about. Status stuff of Halloween. And with that being said, Chelsea, do you want to say anything before we close?
It's okay to be a hater, but it's not okay to be a bully.
With that being said, it's the L7C podcast signing out.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the L7C podcast. Be sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all social media platforms, and we'll be talking to you guys soon. Take care.